Someone disrespected you. Maybe it was recent. Maybe it was months ago and you are still replaying it at 2 in the morning. Still building the argument you never said out loud. Still asking yourself, why didn't I respond? Why did I just stand there and take it? And the worst part? They have already moved on. They do not think about you, but you think about them every single day. You smiled when you should have stayed silent. You explained yourself when no explanation was owed. You extended grace, real, genuine grace, and they looked at that grace and they filed it under weakness. And now there is this slow burning shame sitting beneath your ribs that tells you something went wrong. Not just in that moment, something deeper, something about who you have been allowing yourself to be. This video is not about revenge. It is not about anger. What I'm about to show you is what Machiavelli actually wrote, the lesson that has been mistranslated, buried in academic language, and quietly kept away from men exactly like you. Because a man who understands this cannot be handled. And the world has always preferred men it can handle. Pay close attention. You were taught something dangerous when you were young. You were told that good men turn the other cheek. That patience is a virtue. That if you stay calm, stay kind, and stay consistent, the world will eventually recognize your value and reward you for it. That is one of the most effective lies ever told to a capable man. And you believed it because the people who told it to you believed it too. Here is what actually happens. When you extend kindness without conditions, certain people do not see generosity. They see a gap, a soft edge, an opening. They absorb that information silently, and they use it, not always consciously, not always with malice, but with the cold efficiency of someone who has learned that you will not push back. They are not evil. They are simply operating by rules you were never given access to. The system was never built for the good man who waits his turn and absorbs insults and hopes things improve on their own. It was designed, studied, written, and refined by men who looked at human nature without flinching, who sat in rooms where power was decided, who watched what happened when someone entered with total certainty versus someone who entered still, seeking approval. They wrote down what they saw. Most people never read it. You are not the problem. Your values are not the problem. The problem is that you have been applying noble principles inside the game that does not reward nobility. It rewards clarity, decisiveness, and the quiet internal knowledge of exactly how far you are prepared to go. You have the values. You have never been given the framework that makes those values unbreakable. This knowledge is for protection, not destruction. Remember that. What you are about to learn does not make you cold. It makes you clear. It makes you precise. And a clear, precise man is the hardest man in any room to manipulate, destabilize, or disrespect twice. Niccolo Machiavelli was born in Florence in 1469. He was not a villain. He was not a tyrant. He was a diplomat, a political advisor, a man who sat in the most dangerous rooms in Renaissance Europe and watched with cold, brilliant clarity how power actually moved between human beings. And when he was falsely accused, exiled, and stripped of everything he had built, he did what dangerous men do. He sat down and wrote it all. The Prince was not written for monsters. It was written for men who refused to be destroyed by the world they lived in. Every comfortable institution since has tried to label it immoral, dangerous, forbidden, because books that describe power honestly always make the powerful nervous. And books that give that same knowledge to ordinary men, that is not just dangerous. That is revolutionary. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But what every professor omits, what every watered-down summary leaves on the floor, is the principle that follows. The one about what happens to the ruler who receives an insult and absorbs it silently. The one about what the first unanswered offense actually costs you. That is what we are here for today. A lesson one. The first insult is always a test. The principle. Every act of disrespect is a calibration. They are not expressing how they feel about you. They are measuring how much they can take from you. The first insult is never the real attack. It is the probe sent ahead of the real attack to assess what kind of resistance they will face. You know this moment, the comment in the meeting that dismissed your idea while everyone watched to see how you would respond. The tone your friend used in front of others, that half joke that was not a joke. The way someone spoke over you and then glanced around the room to see if anyone noticed. They noticed, and so did the person who did it. They read your response like a document. The psychology is not complicated. Human beings are constantly unconsciously scanning for social hierarchy. When you absorb disrespect, without signal, without any response at all, you do not appear mature or composed. You appear lower. You have confirmed the test result. Machiavelli understood this intuitively. The unanswered offense becomes the new floor of how you will be treated. What you can do today, the next time someone disrespects you, do not react in the moment, but do not forgive it silently either. Stay completely calm on the outside, then let your next deliberate action be the response. Silence followed by consequence is the coldest power available to a man. And drop this in the comments. The first insult is always a test. The principle. When you explain why you responded the way you did, you are asking for retroactive permission. You are converting a power move into a negotiation. Machiavelli's rulers did not hold press conferences after strategic decisions. They acted and let the consequence speak with total authority. You have done this. You pulled back from someone who crossed a line. And then, when they asked why you were distant, you told them. You softened it. You framed it as a feeling rather than a verdict. And the second you explained yourself, something shifted. The power returned to them, because now they understood your withdrawal had a door, and they just found the key. Explanation signals uncertainty. It says that you are still seeking their understanding, and by extension, still seeking their approval. The man who acts without explanation forces the other person to sit alone with the discomfort of not knowing. That discomfort is a form of power. Let them carry it. Do not reach across and take it back from them by talking. What you can do today, practice the no explanation withdrawal. Do less, say less. Let your reduction in availability be the complete message. The most powerful statement a man can make is a closed door with no note attached. Lesson 3. Distance is the weapon. The principle. The most lethal response to disrespect is not confrontation. It is becoming less available. Not dramatically, not with announced fury, quietly, strategically, until your absence begins to cost them something real, more than your presence ever did. Think about the people who have pulled away from you without explanation. How much space did they occupy in your mind? How much did their silence make you question your own behavior? That psychological weight you felt, that quiet, persistent pressure is something you have the power to create, not out of cruelty, out of understanding how attention and access function as currency. Machiavelli studied how princes who made themselves less accessible became more valuable. Availability is the currency of the man who has made himself too easy to reach. When you are always reachable, always responsive, always present, you erase your own scarcity. And in power, in business, in relationships, things without scarcity have no leverage. What you can do today, identify one person who has shown you who they are. Reduce your availability to them by half this week. No announcement, no explanation, just less. Watch how the dynamic shifts inside of 7 days. Drop this in the comments. My absence speaks louder than my anger. Lesson 4. Strike once or not at all. The principle. Machiavelli's most dangerous warning was this. If you are going to act completely. A half measure does not protect you. It alerts your opponent, gives them time to adjust, and costs you more credibility than doing nothing would have. The incomplete response is worse than silence. You know exactly what a half measure looks like. You confronted someone, but softened the ending and left the door open. You set a limit and broke it yourself 3 days later when they tested it. You pulled back, but answered when they called. Every single half measure trained them that your limits are negotiable, that your resistance has a price, that you can be waited out. This is not about aggression, it is about believability. When your response is total and consistent, the people around you recalibrate permanently. When your response is partial and emotional, they recalibrate too, just in the opposite direction. They learn that your limits are performances, not realities. What you can do today: identify where you have been giving half measures. Decide today what the complete response looks like. Not what feels satisfying, what is strategically final. Commit to it quietly. No announcement, no drama, just follow through. And lesson 5, control what they see. The principle. You are not being judged for who you actually are. You are being judged for the story people have been given permission to construct about you. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must manage appearances with the same precision and seriousness that he manages armies, because both determine outcomes. The man who shows his frustration in the room becomes the man with anger issues. The man who shows his hurt becomes the man who is sensitive, manageable, soft. You handed them the label the moment you handed them the emotion. Your interior world and the real one is your most strategically valuable territory. Guard it accordingly. People do not have access to what is inside you. They can only respond to what you allow to cross the surface, which means what you show is a policy decision, not a performance, not a suppression, a policy. What you allow them to see becomes who you are in their minds. In every interaction, you are authoring a document. Write it deliberately. What you can do today, in your next difficult conversation, choose one emotion you would normally show and hold it back completely. Process it privately on your own time, but do not let it cross your face in that room. This is not deception. This is self-governance. This is what Machiavelli called virtù. I drop this in the comments. They only know what I choose to show them. Lesson 6. Your reputation is built on what you refuse. The principle. Your reputation is not constructed from your achievements. It is constructed from what you have refused to tolerate. The man who accepts disrespect once has a reputation for accepting it. The man who responds once, calmly, completely, without apology, almost never has to respond again. Think about the men you genuinely respect, not admire, respect. What is it you actually respect about them? It is not the resume or the title. It is the standard they maintain that no one crosses. The quiet line that everyone around them has already learned, not because he announced it publicly, but because he enforced it once, clearly without drama, and moved forward. Machiavelli knew this architecture. The ruler who acts with precision once does not need to act constantly. His reputation becomes the standing army that works while he rests, protects while he is absent, deters while he is silent. Your reputation for responding completely once is more powerful than any confrontation you will ever have in real time. What you can do today, ask yourself honestly, what do people currently believe they are allowed to do to you? What behavior have you been rewarding with your tolerance and your silence? Decide today where that ends, not with theater, with one quiet, final, honored decision. And drop this in the comments. My standards are my standing army. The old you is dead. The man who over-explained himself, who absorbed the insult and called it maturity, who gave half measure after half measure and waited for things to change on their own. That version of you has run out of road. You have been living inside the boundaries that other people drew for you, and calling that peace. It was never peace. It was managed smallness. You are a weapon, pointed at your own future. Everything Machiavelli wrote, every principle you have heard today, is not philosophy. It is architecture, the structure of a man who cannot be moved, cannot be used, cannot be disrespected twice. You do not build that man with one conversation or one decision. You build him with the next decision, then the one after that. Starting right now, you belong to no one. Not to the room that dismissed you, not to the person who ran the test and found out something they will now have to unlearn, not to the version of yourself that was still waiting for permission to be powerful. The prince does not wait for permission. He prepares, he decides, he moves, and the world, quietly, inevitably, reshapes itself around that decision. If something in this video reached you, if something confirmed what you have already suspected about yourself and the world around you, then you already know whether this channel is where you belong. Do not subscribe out of habit. Subscribe only if you are ready to keep going. This is not content. This is a different way of seeing. And once you start seeing this way, you cannot go back. Every week I bring you the lessons that were quietly kept from you, Machiavelli, Nietzsche, Robert Greene, Sun Tzu, the men who looked at the world without blinking and wrote down exactly what they saw. If that is the kind of knowledge you want in your life, the notification bell is there. The choice is entirely yours. I'm not asking. I'm making it available. Before you leave, answer this in the comments. I want one honest answer. What is the one situation in your life right now where you have been giving a half measure and you already know deep down what the complete response actually needs to look like?